say one of the things that used to freak me out a lot, it still kind of does, is shooting receptions when there's no ceiling. And in Costa Rica, that happens a lot. So this is a wedding out in Costa Rica. I think there were only like 15, 12 people. They were sitting family style. Speeches are going on. And fortunately, I had 2 video lights, and the videographer that they hired, who's a good friend of mine, also had 2 video lights, and he had extra light stands. So we actually put on light stands, just like this one here, and I'll come and grab it, bring it, is you can actually put these video lights on a light stand like this, and it totally, you noticed when you were doing those exercises that you can't really look into those video lights. They're pretty damn bright. And I always tell people, like, close your eyes or shut your eyes. So you really want to make sure that light stand is up pretty high, projecting the video light down. So you can see one of the video lights here, and then the videographer's kind of standing behind it while the speeches are going on. I just wanted to show that's kind of if you know ahead of time that you're going to be shooting outside, maybe you're shooting a bonfire, or maybe a musician outside or a model outside, doesn't have to be just at a wedding, to bring along the video lights. They're great for that. The other thing is that this costs $30, this light stand. You don't need a heavy duty one. It's super light. It packs really well into my camera bag. And the video lights generally run on eBay for $50. And at like London Drugs out west, I know the rest of the country doesn't have London Drugs, but it's $100 at London Drugs. And then I bought a nice one at the camera store in Calgary for $250. So you can spend a lot more on them. The videographers generally have ones that have a lot more power, and there's a lot of different forms of them. But we saw that even the little video lights, they work pretty well, and those were just $100. Yeah, Helene? What would be the question for a better just the amount of light that comes out of them, because unlike glass, we're not really, they're just LED. So you just need an LED light that projects enough to your taste, which is kind of nice. And yeah, sorry.
Do these have a wide enough spread that you don't need to like aim them up or down? I mean, the way we were holding them, you can't do that on a light stand unless you put like a tripod on it. So I mean, is that like a limitation?
Yes, you do need a tripod head on I think Megan, yours, I didn't bring mine, but yours has a flash mount, right? Yeah, there is a flash mount.
Adjusting its position.
Oh yeah, you can. You can get, did I bring one? You could even do this and hang it in a tree. Yeah, I brought this for the off-camera flash thing, but there's a few different things you can do as well that if you don't have a tripod on hand, I mean, it's just an LED light. If it drops, it's not as expensive as if you got your flash on it. So these were the pictures that I was getting, only ambient, absolutely no flash used. And I pretty much used the same exposure, 160th of a second, again, because I was shooting with a 85 millimeter. I get worried about handshake. I had a lot of Diet Coke that day. And 3200 ISO. And if you find that your camera is a little bit too grainy when you bump up those ISOs, then maybe that's when you want to bring along a tripod for that kind of thing. But a lot of our cameras these days, in both Canon and Nikon, you're really able to kind of get it up to 4,000 or higher, which is nice. And then we use these fire dancers. This is actually right next door to, like, these guys were watching the fire dancers. And it was pretty cool. And this is out of my camera. And you see it is a little bit dimmer, and that's because, like, the fire dancers were moving around a little bit. But I was still able to kind of pick up an ambient reading, and that was at ISO 4000. The other thing that I find is sometimes I don't just want to be at 2.8 when I'm shooting outside and when I'm shooting people moving, and that's because, or even 1.8, or if you can get your camera down or your lens down to 1.2, and that's because when people move around, you ever find, you shoot people at 1.2 or 2.8, if there's even like your own slight movement, and you're trying to aim for the eye, it goes a little out of focus. So I do find that sometimes I like to be at 3.2, 3.5, even if I've got, I'm shooting with pretty decent glass. But so that would be the reason here. I want to make sure he's showing up in the background, and that they were moving fast too, the fire dancers. So for focusing in the dark, another thing I figured out from doing all these weddings in Costa Rica is that when people are dancing around, sometimes they're in the light, sometimes they're out of the light, and it would always be frustrating because a lot of my pictures would be out of focus. And what I found was there's just not enough contrast when we're trying to focus with autofocusing and you're trying to focus on the eye. There's just not enough contrast in a dark setting. But you know what? Our teeth are exactly the same space as your eye, so I focus on people's teeth as they're moving, or their mouth. There's just a little bit more contrast. So there's another little trick. So this guy was a musician who came to a bonfire rehearsal party, and I focused on his mouth because I wasn't having any success focusing on his eyes. It would have been out of focus, not out of exposure. Okay, so circles of confusion is the proper name of the technique I'm going to talk to you guys about, but I call it front bokeh because most photographers know that when you are shooting, let's say at 2.8, and you've got a lens that's really like making those circles in the background, you can do that in the foreground as well. And the closer you get something to your lens, the blurrier it gets. So it doesn't matter what you've got, and I do this with like bottled water or things like that. And so we're going to do a video. So I'm using this jewelry. I've wrapped it up so it's straight, and now I've created a circle with it. So I'm going to shoot directly through it at Kelsey. I wanted her to be a little bit lower than me. I'm making sure that the light is actually catching on this. So if I were to shoot it over here in the shadow, it's not going to be as effective or as pretty as when the light hits it. It's going to create all kinds of neat patterns that won't look like I've got jewelry in front of my camera. And yeah, that's beautiful, Kelsey, that's gorgeous. And this is another way that I also like to clear clutter in camera as well, is you can just put objects in front of your lens, and it's kind of like having bokeh in front of the lens, but it's also the way that light hits these objects, these shiny, shiny objects, creates these really cool balls of light in front of your camera. That's perfect, that's gorgeous. I'll show you basically some more examples that I took with Kelsey. And something that I'm not sure if I point out in the video or not, but Kelsey, I got her on Model Mayhem, and then she let me know that she was 5 months pregnant, which didn't bother me at all, but she's 5 months pregnant. She looks fantastic, doesn't she? So anyway. All right, so there's that one with the jewelry. This thing, I got it at Michael's. This was one of my more expensive pieces. I think it was about $6. Michael's has a lot of this kind of stuff, like, or any kind of art store does, but you can just go to the dollar store. A lot of the stuff I get is just at the dollar store, and I've got everything up front so you can come and play with it at the break as well. But I really love this one because the glass actually picks up reflections. So it's actually picking up the trees that were in behind me on her and not just casting circles. So it's kind of neat. I really like that. Yeah, prisms work really well too. And I didn't bring my prism with me, but if any of you brought a prism, maybe we can get it out and practice with it as well. All right, so the reason I am standing in front of a video light with a bracelet is I'm doing the same thing we did outside with the jewelry. I want light to actually hit this bracelet, and I'm not just shooting straight through it. I've actually angled it a little bit so that it almost completely covers my lens, and I'm still able to get in there and focus on Kelsey and get some kind of artistic shots using the exact same lighting, the exact same setting that we had earlier on her. And just by simply twisting this around, it's not going to look like jewelry at all. It's going to look, well, I'll show you the pictures. It's going to look a little bit more arty and dramatic, and it's just using the same frontal bokeh that we had done before. That's perfect, Kelsey. And it's also a great way to make clutter disappear. So I don't really like that there's a line running through her arm because this couch is black, so I'm able to actually completely make that disappear by using this bracelet. Let's see, this was this tinfoil thing, you know, for stovetop cover. I crinkled it up and made sure the video light was actually hitting it. So it's a little bit of a different light than Kelsey. I wasn't so happy with the blue that was coming off of it. It's just an example picture. So this is the beveling on the bottom of the water. Yes, exactly like that. You can put 2 or 3 water bottles. Sometimes I'll even, if there's really a lot of beveling, I'll leave the this on. They're always in hotel rooms when girls are getting ready, and it was just something I noticed. I'll sometimes put 2 water bottles side by side, and then I get side-by-side circles that come up to my camera, and this was a picture taken with the bottom beveling. It was a little bit more beveled than this. Light has to hit it, though. So it was actually, let's see, I'll get my camera. So it might be, like I really do want to always make sure that light is hitting on it, and it's right around here, like that. So I just took a picture of you. And yeah, the question was how close was I to the camera, so just to kind of give you an example. Then this is more water bottles, and I think it might be mixed with a wine bottle. It's just in a bride's hotel room, but they basically just turn to complete circles. And this is tissue paper. And the bride did ask me, why are you photographing tissue paper? But it can make a really nice soft effect. The light doesn't necessarily have to hit tissue paper. We're going to be talking a little bit about how to reduce age in camera, to reduce blemishes and wrinkles and things like that, uneven skin. This bride, like, pretty much was a model, but so she didn't have, I wasn't trying to remove anything, but you can also use some of these like softer techniques. I even used my hand for a picture that I took of Leah when I was photographing for this. This is the flower technique, just another example. So just out in the field. And, you know, they could be really ugly plants, too. Like, they could be weeds. It doesn't matter as long as the light's hitting them. A broom? Yeah, totally, yeah. Any bush, anything. That looks gorgeous. That looks really, really good. Perfect. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is the exact same technique I did with the jewelry. I want light to actually hit an object. It could be a green leaf. It could be a flower. Anything in nature, pretty much, as long as it's lit, and especially backlit, you're going to get a really pretty front bokeh where everything that's in front of your camera is going to go to circles. So that's why I also decided to put my 80 to 200 millimeter lens on, because it just has a little bit better compression, and it means that frontal bokeh is just a little bit nicer. I'd started using my 85, and I just wasn't getting quite the flavor I wanted. So when I show you these pictures, you'll see exactly what I'm doing. All of these yellow flowers and green leaves have turned just to circles, and you can't tell that they're actually the shape of flowers that they are. Doesn't mean that I wouldn't also want to shoot them that way too, but you could take any plant. It could be an ugly plant. As long as light is hitting it, it will be an effective front drop, not just backdrop for your photo. Okay. That looks awesome, Kelsey. That's perfect. Gorgeous. Looks so good. And so a cell phone and reflections, I just want to show you, this is an iPad, not a cell phone. By just basically moving it side by side, it will actually cast a bit of light. I even see it right now. It's casting a bit of reflections from the ceiling into my lens. And what it was doing here was she was drinking and getting ready in front of a window, and it made like almost a perfect reflection. This is also not retouched. I did that on purpose just, you know, to be able to show you guys what it did. This is also my cell phone. So it's just my cell phone. It's picked up some of the leaves, and it's casted on them. It almost looks like a double exposure, but it was a single exposure. And so that's something you guys can practice as well. You want to make sure that some light also hits on it. So I'm going to put the phone away, and we're going to try just using this reflective surface right here. I'm always looking in hotel rooms, well, pretty much anywhere. It could be a window for reflections. And you can do this technique just about anywhere, but I know for a fact that this coffee table is reflective. We're going to use this one right now, and I have a near perfect reflection of our gorgeous model right here from head to foot. This is basically a coffee table at the studio that I rent, and it makes for a nice reflection. I'm always looking at coffee tables and floors. Always have like some nice reflections, even if it picks up a little bit of just the shadow in a reflection. It can look really pretty. One thing that I do find is when I've judged a lot of contests, and sometimes people will have this fantastic reflection. It might be reflection in a water, reflection on a coffee table, but it only shows like half the person's body. And so if you're going to show her whole face and her whole head, show her whole face and her whole head in the reflection. as a general rule, or show her whole body in the reflection and maybe just her feet. That's fine, but the reflection should have the whole of whatever it is that your subject is in it. And this is also just another hotel coffee table. And you can see she's, you know, it just kind of made like a little weird thing. And then this was because the car light was on. Again, it's a car light. And she's just honestly looking out the window. I did, I think, retouch her skin a little bit, but I didn't really play around too much with anything else. This is really kind of how it looked out of the camera. And yeah, she just looked out the window, and it almost looks fake, right?
What would your f-stop be on this, or where are you focusing on her?
I'm focusing on her lips, and that's a really good question. She asked, where was I focusing? When somebody's wearing one of these birdcage things, and sometimes people wear them in glamour shoots, fashion shoots, things like that, it's really hard to get focus on the eyes. So that's where this part of the lip is the best part to focus on, to make sure that you're getting the same focus as the eye, if that makes sense. And then this is just a out of the camera. I do like to, when I'm manipulating photos, I do like to darken and lighten areas in a photo to really attract your eye. For teaching purposes, I did want to show you as much as I could in camera. So this is in camera, and it's just the skyline of the Canada Centre in a puddle. And then I flipped it upside down. And then this was a picture on a wall that had a picture of some laundry flapping. And then the wedding dress was in a window, and it was casting some reflection into the picture. So I focused on the dress and then let the picture kind of get a little bit blurry, but it still can suggest a little bit. With the wedding dress, sometimes when I'm doing this, I'll sometimes shoot through windows as well, it's hard to focus, and that's where you might need to manually focus. All right, one of the other things that you can do, besides putting baubles in front of the lens, is actually be able to create a little bit more drama and to frame your subject and give a little bit more variety on your shoot by simply putting things in front of the camera and having them silhouette. And one of the things I always do is I give a little try, and I put my hand directly up around, and I create little patterns and little frames, and it always works. And so we're just going to use the exact same light. I'll just take a couple of pictures and you'll see. And let's pretend there's some distracting elements I don't want in the picture. Well, now they're gone because my hand has actually created a frame. That's perfect, Kelsey. Awesome. This was outside of a bathroom, doing the same technique of just shooting in the dark. And it was an outdoor bathroom that really, it was a dark sky. I mean, we already had like pitch black night, but the bathroom was more lit than it's showing here. And still I had to bump up my ISO to 4,000. And then I put my hand over it just to make another thing. And then this is my hand where you can actually, like if you knew it was my hand, it's my hand. But I was just basically reducing clutter. So sometimes it doesn't make for a perfect silhouette, and that's fine. Most people, you wouldn't know if I didn't tell you that that was my hand. And then the other thing I wanted to mention too is when somebody's looking at themselves in a mirror, I always like to include, this is not my hand, this is her arm. I like to shoot through their arm. I like to shoot through other people's arms. When I have people on shoots, I'm always encouraging somebody to kind of stand like this, and for people to use that as a frame and make that a silhouette and then focus in on other things. So there's just a little bit closer up. So that's her arm, and then she's looking in the mirror, and then I focused in on that. Some photographers go, well, she knows what she looks like. No, most of us don't know what we look like. Most of us look at ourselves in the mirror straight on. Most of us have our pictures taken, we're selfies, you know, or we're just having pictures taken at a party and we're like this. It's all straight on. It's never really from the side, it's never from underneath. And, you know, you have to be really careful that even if you took the best shot you ever took, if it's going to hurt somebody's feelings and they just don't look good in it, it's a nice idea to maybe either try to keep taking that picture until you get it right. But most people they don't have their picture taken like that. When you look at a picture of yourself on Facebook, where, let's say that there's a whole crowd of people, there's 100 people in the picture, but your eye is immediately going to go, what do I look like? Well, our clients, regardless of what the context, family portraits, done candid style, doesn't matter, they're all going to want to see, what do I look like? And girls, you know, we're always worried a little bit about our beer bellies. That's mine. You know, you know, the chin is also a big cause for concern. This part of women's dresses can kind of cut in, but men are also self-conscious too about the shape of their face and stuff like that. They just don't talk about it as much. So I try to be kind, and I'm always keeping that in mind. If the picture doesn't, you know, flatter that person and they don't like it, then I don't want to be posting it on Facebook. I don't like doing unflattering pictures in my portfolio of people. So we're going to talk a little bit about flattering poses, and this is Sky, the model that we saw with the feathers earlier. And so she did, these are kind of like good, better, best kind of poses. So this is like kind of straight on. Basically, you know, she is leaning back on her leg, but she's looking straight at the camera. And so she's kind of like this. And what they always say is to give women more curves. This is also for women who have very straight figures, is that you get more curves if you bump hips around, make things asymmetrical. So if one arm is this way, maybe the other arm is this way, things should be crooked, things should also be, I'm talking women only, things should also be bent. You know, always be bendy. Make S's or geometric shapes. And when you do this, it slims the waist. And it also adds curves to women who don't have curves. And then if you go a little bit to the side, it's even better, right? So she went from good to better. And then, you know, really to the camera is not bad, but it looks even better when I move my arms back. And do I look like a freak doing this? No, but I feel like a freak because it's a really weird, it's a really weird posture. You know, you get the girls out and you're like, I feel all conspicuous. So it's going to feel weird to your clients. Let them know it's going to feel weird, but it's going to look good. And it does look best, right, when she's kind of angled to the camera. The other thing I tell women to do is, and this regardless of if somebody is self-conscious of their chin or not, is if I'm really, okay, I have to say that at weddings, I don't do this a lot because I'm working so quickly. I just don't have time to give a lot of instructions. But let's say I'm doing boudoir or something where I'm really posing somebody. I get them, and you all do it with me. You stick your chin out, then down. Out, then down. So here, oh, sorry, I've got some close-ups of her doing that so you can see. But here I did tell her, your chin out, then down, which looks a little bit better. So then she plays the ukulele and does comedy shows and stuff, and is part of her burlesque routine as well. So we wanted to take a few pictures of her doing that. And I really loved it on her. This looks great on her. It might not look great on another model. So it depends on who you're working with. But doesn't she look fantastic when she really leans back and arches back and she's got that prop in her hands, rather than when she's, you know, doing this. So she really knows her body. I told her to stand straight so that I could show some before and after, because when you're working with a model, they'll just know. But not always the case with our clients. So this is beautiful Leia, again, unretouched. And so when you do a shoulder to the camera, that looks good, right? Not bad, but it looks even better this way. Don't you agree? Yeah. And then this is our model's boyfriend's in class. So he knows she's hot. So yeah, I took these pictures on the weekend of her. And this is more for boudoir posing and posing with women, is you're always going to slim the waist if you kind of have your girl, your subject, hold her girls underneath. And you always create a little bit more, bringing the girls up a little bit if you do that. So she's really leaned forward. She's sitting just on one butt cheek. And I mentioned that in the video that we showed earlier, the one butt cheek technique. We're going to talk about sitting poses in the next couple of slides. But she's just on one butt cheek. It's still the same thing as doing this, but you're doing it while sitting down. And yeah, and it's a really nice, flattering picture of her in a boudoir kind of style, right? So it's something if somebody's got really nice assets, or even if they want to enhance their assets in any way, shape, or form, get them to do this. It totally lifts up their assets and covers the belly. And then this is just another one where I wanted to mention that sometimes our clients forget to breathe and relax their face, and especially when we're slowly posing them, which you do with boudoir photography, glamour photography, and fashion photography, is they'll forget to relax their face. So she's quite used to modeling. She's also a burlesque dancer. So she kind of knows her body and she knows her face, and she was doing all these fantastic things. So I told her to close her mouth the way our clients normally would, because sometimes they'll start showing on their face. All you say to somebody is, okay, now relax your mouth and breathe through your mouth. So telling somebody just a simple act of breathe through your mouth is a nice thing to tell somebody, and it totally relaxes her jaw. And doesn't she look even nicer, right? So this is the sitting down thing modified to laying down. And because I don't have a bed here, I would normally kind of show you guys, but it's one butt cheek, and it's really balanced. This leg kind of comes down when she's laying down, and it again brings up the nice assets. And chin out, then down when you're doing that kind of modeling. And then this is retouched, because I couldn't find the unretouched ones, but it's another friend of mine who does, she also does burlesque dancing and things like that. And this is the one butt cheek. So she's one butt cheek, and she's balancing on that. So basically, we're kind of lean back on the one foot. Basically, you take that and you add it to the chair. And it's just like that. If I sit like this, you're welcome to kind of stand up if you need to see me better. When I sit like this, it's okay. When I cross my legs, it's a bit more flattering. But if I just do one butt cheek, it's okay as well. It's better if my legs are kind of asymmetrical or doing something different. If they're both the same, it's not as good. It's better to do, even one out. This is starting to feel really uncomfortable, but it looks good. Like, she doesn't look uncomfortable, does she? And then if you really just kind of sit on, and I'll do it here, on the very edge of the seat, it's even better, right? As opposed to me sitting just one butt cheek. So if you're really posing somebody for fashion or boudoir, just to kind of like not really sit down. And she even gave me feedback, whoa, this is uncomfortable, but it looks good.
So basically the best rule of thumb is make them as most uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll tell them that too. I'm like, this will be so worth it. But the thing is, I'll get my camera settings done first, because I don't want to be dorking around with that stuff while that person's holding a pose. And I never get my brides to hold a pose. I'm really loosey-goosey with weddings. But when I'm actually doing something that's a bit more structured and requires a little bit more perfection, then I'll be a little bit more posy. So this is our gorgeous model, Sky, again. And I mentioned this in the video, but I realized the audio was just a little bit maybe soft, is that your face goes toward the light, body away from the light. The body away from the light goes into shadows, and especially when you use that trick. So we were in my studio, and the skylight, it's natural light, skylight that comes into the room, was coming in, and I basically did that same thing we did with the night shooting and all that other stuff, where I just found the brightest spot. This is not retouched, and then again, if you cover the belly with your hand, it still looks good, and if anybody's kind of self-conscious of a belly, it's just a nice way to deal with that. So her body, she's one butt cheek, her body's away from the camera, and her face is toward the light. It's always a little bit more flattering. And then this is Leigh again, and it's the same technique. I did make it black and white, but otherwise I didn't touch it. And this is the same skylight the day before coming in the window, doing the same thing. And again, it's one butt cheek. And then this is a bride doing the same thing. And the other thing you can do, and okay, so she's going to love this photo, right? Like, because she's a gorgeous girl. But if I entered this in a contest, she has no neck. So the contest judges would be like, she's got no neck. They'll move on. So what we as photographers want as perfection is one thing. And yes, if you're entering a contest, you want to have like the perfect amount of catch lights in somebody's eyes and all these other picky details. But our clients aren't going to care. They just want to look good. So you can also, the most flattering thing to do with somebody if they're self-conscious of their chin, is just shoot over top with a woman. The other thing is the flamenco. And I should have been more mindful of her hands. But yeah, to do the flamenco, the more you stretch, do I look better than right now? The more you stretch the body, the better. I mean, you'd never know she's 5 months pregnant, right? Yeah. Not that I'm trying to hide her pregnancy, but it was for this workshop. And then this is the face toward the light. That's just the video light against the wall next to the studio. And then her face, or her everything else to the shadow. And then over the shoulders, also really nice for anybody who's also self-conscious of a chin. So that's also a nice thing. And I do that a lot with my brides because I'm trying not to overpose my brides. I don't want them, feeling uncomfortable on the wedding day. I just go like that, and it looks good. So this is my friend Kevin, and I'm going to bring handsome Derek up to do a little bit of structured male modeling. But this is my friend Kevin, and he asked me to take a few headshots of him. And there was a video I was watching on Creative Live recently. If you haven't heard of Creative Live, I highly recommend, if you've got some time, go check it out, creativelive.com. And there's all these free workshops and videos that take place every single day on all kinds of different creative topics and Photoshop and everything else. And then the next day, that after it's been broadcast, you have to pay money for it. So when it's live, it's free. When it's not live, it's not. So when I was watching on Creative Live, there was somebody talking about posing men. And he said that it's best not to have, he tells his guys not to have a crew neck. That if you have an open shirt, it makes the neck longer. And Kevin is a surfer. He doesn't have, he's got a pretty, nice physique. So it's not like he has any kind of thing to worry about with his chin. But so basically with a guy, I'm going to bring Derek up. Okay. So Derek, just pretend you're taking a picture for Facebook. How would you normally stand? Hey, Derek, cheese. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So basically now if I told you, okay, I just want a shoulder to the camera, what would you do? Yeah, pretty much. Girls, generally, now I might say chin just down a little bit, and out, and then down. Yeah. Does that look better? Does that look better? Okay, cool. Because I can't tell from the side. But, okay, you notice Derek's got good posture? I'm willing to bet that all the guys in this room have pretty good posture as well. I rarely have to correct the guy's posture. For whatever reason, in the 60s, there's all those movies with the women walking around with books on their head because they practice their posture. Well, I don't know, when my generation started growing up, we didn't care. We were all walking around like this, and, So I've seen brides walk down the aisle, like there's nothing I can do about it. But girls have worse posture in this day and age than guys do. I pretty much don't have to do much with a guy. With hands, I'll usually tell a guy if he's a little bit nervous, just put your hands in your pocket. And then he's not worried about his hands. There's always guys asking me, what should I do with my hands? They're not used to being photographed. So you've already got your hands in your pocket. Are you comfortable? Comfortable and hot. Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. So this is just another picture of my friend Kevin, and I did have to keep telling him to put his chin down. This is a picture where he didn't put his chin down. So I did have to keep telling him he doesn't have anything wrong with his chin. It just looks better to go out and then down. The best photographer in the world, a lot of us, if we've been out there photographing people, we know that if the client doesn't like you, they're going to hate their photos, and they're going to tell everybody about the experience they had with you. Or if they really like you, they won't have seen a single photo, and they'll go, oh, she's the best photographer in the world, and you're like, you haven't even seen any pictures yet. So what I wanted to do was, how are we doing right now for time? Because I want to get some people come up to the front, and I'm just wondering how much. Okay, cool. We're going to take 5 minutes of a little bit of stuff, and then we'll come back to it and do a little bit more. So I'm going to do everything wrong, and I would like somebody who would feel comfortable coming up to the front, and I'm going to pretend you are my subject, and I'm going to do everything that I've seen other photographers do that's wrong. Who wants to be my subject? Okay, come on up, Anne-Marie. Beautiful Anne-Marie, everybody. Awesome.
I know her, so it's going to be easier for her to torture me.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just pretend we haven't met, and we're just like, okay. Yeah, okay, so cool. Okay, hi.
Hi.
Okay, okay, just got to get everything set up. Okay. Okay, so can you put your hand on your waist? Okay, not that waist, the other waist. Okay, not that side, the other hand. Okay, not Okay, no, not like that. That doesn't look good at all. Okay, can you, yeah, your hand down. Okay, we'll just, that's fine. Okay. Okay. Okay, so how did you feel?
Really awkward.
Oh, we should bring the microphone out if we can get it working. I don't
Really
know.
awkward.
Okay, cool. You're talking to my lapel.
Really awkward.
Okay, why
Now
do you
even
think,
more awkward.
why do you think that is?
Because I didn't know what you were doing, and I was standing the exact same pose for probably about 30 pictures.
Yeah, you were. And the way that I
No
told you how to
communication.
pose, yeah, how did that feel? Like the
Just
pose itself?
Awkward.
Yeah.
Stiff and rigid and
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. What else did I do wrong? And I'll repeat it out for the video. I kept saying no. Yes, exactly. You know. Yeah, I kept saying no. I like to correct people with, oh, that looks good. How long does it take to go? And then make them readjust so they don't feel like they did something wrong. A lot of times when somebody hears no, not that way, no, that's not what I meant, no, like any of that negative language plays on their head and they start to feel like they did something wrong. So it's better to be like, well, I'll show you what's better after the break. And then the other thing I didn't do, I also told her it didn't look good. And you know what? I might have been talking about the exposure. Yes, and that can translate. So sometimes I've worked with other photographers, and I've heard them look down at the camera and go, oh, that doesn't look good. And they mean the exposure. They don't mean the way the person looked. You want to be really careful what you say out loud to your clients. The other thing I didn't do is I didn't smile. I tried not to. Sometimes I laughed. And what else did I do? I didn't talk to her at all, right, while I was shooting. I was completely silent. Anything else that I didn't do? Yeah, I looked straight into my camera and like totally, yeah, I blew the introduction, didn't make her feel comfortable at all. Yes?
Yeah, when you kept telling her to change the position, you're, no, that's not right. And instead of just, oh, put your hand here.
Yes, exactly, yeah. So when I was telling her to change position, I kept saying, no, not that way, which also feels awkward. The other thing was I didn't show her. And it's better to be like, you show her. So we'll do the right way. We can use Anne-Marie again if anybody else is too shy to come up to the front, but we'll do the right way after the break. Okay, if that helps. Okay, so we've got Anne-Marie back up, and unless anybody else wanted to kind of have me do the proper way, I'm going to be getting some more of you guys up in a bit, though, for the group stuff. So here's the right way to do it, and let's pretend I had never met Anne-Marie, and I just stepped out of the car, and maybe we'd had a few emails, but I never really met her. I'm like, hey, Anne-Marie, how are you? I'm Christina. Hi, you look fantastic today. Yeah, so are you excited?
a little nervous.
Okay, and what's your comfort level like in front of the camera?
Not so good.
Okay, no problem. You know what we're going to do? We're going to make this super easy and fun. And I'm going to do stuff that's super easy, like nothing really, really too like posy or anything like that. I'm just going to give you some simple directions, and I promise you're going to look fantastic because you look great today. So now I should ask you, because I was thinking like there's that big rock over there. I was thinking like about getting you up there. You're wearing that awesome flowy dress on right now. And the wind's going to get in your hair. Would you feel comfortable with heights? Are you okay with that? Okay, cool. And I was thinking too, with the flowy train and dress that you've got, how comfortable would you be to twirl? Yeah, would you be comfortable twirling? Some people have trouble with twirling, right? So I want to know all those things up front. You might ask a few more questions, but it's great for me to know that she's a little bit camera shy, so that's totally fine. But I want to emphasize that we're going to make it easy for her. And I'm always saying that to people, don't worry, we'll make it easy. It's all good. It's all good. So, okay, awesome. So let's start. I'm just going to take a couple of like headshots for you. You look fantastic. And I'm just going to come up. That looks great. Okay, chin out, then down. Perfect. Oh my gosh, that's really awesome. Okay, so now pretend that I told you to put your right hand on your hip and you put your left hand. Yeah, okay. So what I would do is, if this is not what I wanted her to do, it's going to take me 1 second. Awesome, that looks great. Now let's try the other hand on the hip. You know, there's no reason to make her feel bad. How long did it take for me to take that? So, oh, that looks great. That's perfect. And then the entire time I'm shooting, I'm like, Okay, you look really, really good. Okay, so eyes at me, that's great. I might be giving her instructions, and if I'm really getting tripped up because I'm trying to work some stuff out in my brain and I've got a lot going on, I might just say, that's awesome, that's awesome, that's good, that's awesome, that's awesome. But you want her to feel good, right? Okay, so when I say work it, I'm gonna so pretend we've been working for a little while longer together. Usually they start to enjoy and have a little bit of fun. So when I say work it, I want you to give me a different pose. I want you to toss that hair around. I want you to work it, okay? So work it, work it, work it, feel it, touch it, work it, work it. That's great, that's great. Work it, work it, work it. Beautiful, darling, beautiful, beautiful, marvelous, darling. And I'll actually say that. You're gonna come up with whatever technique you have. I'm happy, you can totally steal that, I don't care. Most of us don't share the same clients anyway. It doesn't matter to me if other photographers use these tricks. I've learned some of this stuff off going to other workshops too. But basically, yeah, I love to say the work it, because it just makes people feel silly. And we're gonna do a little bit more silly stuff when we pose the groups. So I'll be telling you a little bit more about silly instructions you can give people. But for a single person, if I had them, that's pretty much how I'd work. And how did you feel for that?
Better.
Okay, cool.